My name is Herman Holloway, Jr. I'm the Executive Director of the Martin Luther King Complaint and Referral Center, Incorporated. It's an agency that was founded back in 1974 by a group of friends of mine, the associates, and the Southbridge Resident Council, under the leadership of Xanthia Oliver, which is Norman Oliver's mother at that time, and the young men that I was associated with. I organized them into a group called the Watchdog Committee. And we started the Watchdog Committee because we found ourselves having conversations and getting very frustrated about the things that were going down in our community that was against the people's will.
Oh, keep on rolling.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. I just want to check something.
We started giving, after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Senator Holloway summons a lot of us to the Monday Club to talk about doing an annual Martin Luther King dinner in Dr. King's honor and memory. I became chairman of what's called the King Dinner Committee, and we have since then put on 39 annual dinners in that name. I am still the chairman of the King Dinner Committee, and we still do have our group that is assembled looking at going into our 40th annual Martin Luther King dinner, which will probably be in and around the birthday of the 15th, that weekend following the birthday, as we go into 2011. I'm a former state representative. I served 8 years in the Delaware legislature. I was in for 6 years. I was out for a while. I run back and I won. My dad was Senator Herman Holloway Sr., who was in the, did 1 year in the State House of Representatives in 1963 and 1964. He was a candidate for state senator, the first black state senator. He was elected. Senator Holloway stayed there for 31 years until his death. He still holds the largest, greatest seniority of any longtime legislature in the Delaware General Assembly to date. I'm pretty sure that's still accurate. I know it was a few years ago. Senator Holloway was chairman of the Joint Finance, was on the first black to serve on Joint Finance Committee, I meant to say. He was chairman of the Health and Social Service Committee of the Senate. I was chairman of the Health and Social Service Committee of the House of Representatives. Senator Holloway was chairman of the Aging Committee of the Senate, and several other committees as well. I had never wanted to be involved in public life, business entrepreneur. I had a janitorial service, and my thing was to make some money and retire at a very young age. And I messed around after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and over on 30th and Gunner Prince, it used to be a big A&P there in that shopping center where Nixon Uniform is now, right across from the U-Haul truck outlet there, 30th and Gunner Prince. And the grocery store, big supermarket, got burned out. The grocery store in the project there, Riverside, got burned out. 27th and Claymont, there was no store. And my good friend, Arthur Scott, became Councilman Scott, but Scotty opened up a store where the merchant got burned out in Southbridge. And Scotty kept encouraging me to open up a store over the other side of town, over in Riverside, which I eventually done. I got over there and I heard the complaints of problems with people who were those that lived in public housing, those at the very bottom of the economic ladder, very low income, many no income, that were on public assistance. And there were problems of things that people were sharing me with my grocery store, which was 1600 Tides Lane, right across from the Riverside Housing and East Lake Development. And as my customers were coming in and they would share different things with me about how the housing authority was ripping people off, residents, and nobody would speak up or fight for them. During those days, they didn't have tenant councils, resident councils. And the same was with the welfare department. And some of the stories were so bizarre, I started asking them, well, please have that lady come up and talk to me. And they would, because they were at wit's end, get ready to get put out or thrown off welfare, food stamps, or whatever it was. And it was so bizarre, I ended up locking up my store, going to either the welfare office or to the housing authority office, fighting for these folks, which later became good friends of mine, which later became clients of Kingcenter when I opened up Kingcenter. And I got so pulled into the people business as a result of you help one or two, the word gets around and somebody's getting jerked, go see Holloway up at his store. So I'm locking my store down, going and representing these folks. And I begin to realize how people get taken advantage at the bottom of the economic ladder. And it started to really spark my interest. And I really began to get involved, working and organizing the residents. Hicks Anderson at that point was the only one doing that. And I aided Hicks. Hicks was a good friend of mine, but we'd never worked together. I told him I wanted to help. And we ended up forcing an issue with Scotty and Billy Gibson, who lived in Riverside, and Joe Wilkerson and some of my associates, Madison H. Evans, Outplant. Those guys began to just plug in with me, being my backup as I would want to fight an issue with the Wilmington Housing Authority or whatever the welfare department. And it led to the firing of, we went to a commissioner's meeting against a decision that was made by Dudley Finch, who had been executive director of Wilmington Housing Authority for 28 years. And our position fighting Dudley on that issue caused Hal Haskell, who Ray Evans was a good friend of mine, and Ray worked for Hal as assistant to the mayor. Hal ended up over that issue when it blew up in the newspaper at how ugly it was and how ridiculous. And Dudley Finch would not back off till we forced it to a confrontation against the Board of Commissioners. And they made Dudley back off, and then they fired Dudley because the mayor Haskell wanted him fired. We ended up with the first black executive director of our Wilmington Housing Authority, which was named Troy Chapman. And as a result of all that effort, well, naturally, this is getting all kind of press. I'm thrown in the highlights of all of it because Holloway went to the meeting, Holloway this, Holloway that, Junior. And as a result, now everybody's coming to me, and the more they're coming, the more I'm seeing the need for an office. As we were doing the dinner and ended up with $3,000 to $4,000 or so, we put in the paper, announced that the money's going to be used to help those with problems with heat or food or whatever, rent, till the money's gone. Well, they knew my associates and all the guys, Scotty and Madison and them, so they would, people in need would run to their houses to see if they could get us to help them. And after that happened for a couple of years and it began to really grow, that's when I told the guys, and the women as well, the resident council women, that we needed to open up an office. I like to call it the Kingcenter. Let's have a centralized location that we all just volunteer and open up and run that office from 10 to 2, Monday through Thursday. And we would man it with one man and one woman from the resident council. We'd be there at all times. But the Kingcenter became our hangout because we just all were so involved with each other in housing authority stuff, the tenant council was doing, and we were their backup. And anyway, that's interesting how all that happened, because there was a building at 10th and Wilson, right on the corner, which was an old urban renewal property that was owned by the city of Wilmington. And it was a 3-story building with a storefront with big picture windows. And right across from the YMCA at 10th and Wilson. It's tore down now, it's a parking lot. But anyway, I went to my good friend, the late Tom Maloney. Tom was the mayor then. And I told Tom, used to be in the city council, and him and Fred Sears and some of that, we all guys, we were always very close. And I went and told Tom I wanted that building to open up what I wanted to call the Kingcenter. And Tom ended up giving me that building for $75 a month. And Tom paid, since they were doing it anyway to keep the building from freezing, Tom paid the oil to keep the heat in and paid the electric bill. And from there, I went to call Bell Telephone from my home, added extension of phone service, and put 3 phones in there, and we bumped some desks and whatnot, and Kingcenter was born. That was in 1974. We opened up this location, and well, we moved from there when they tore the building down, and we moved to 1010 Walnut Street, round from the YMCA. That building was owned by Vince Romano, a lawyer, Democrat buddy of mine, and Vince let me rent it for $100 a month. And we stayed there for a long time. And we ended up with 1010 Walnut Street, and in 1976, I had done a favor for a senior citizen who owned this building, and he wanted to sell me a couple properties, of which I did buy them. He handled the finance and charged no interest, so he just wanted to do me a favor. He wanted to get out of the business. And we opened up over here in 1976, and we ran both locations. That 1010 Walnut Street address now is the YMCA parking lot, right down from the Y. So Kingcenter has an interesting history. My background, the picture there with Joe Biden, I don't know if you've seen that one on the sofa. I'm seeing that as I look at you. That's Joe doing a fundraiser for me. Joe Biden, myself, and Bobby Marshall were in the Young Democrats with Tom Maloney and a bunch of others, you see, and we were the rebel rousers of the party, the new guys coming in with all the answers. You know, we're going to run, we're going to take over the city and everything else. And a lot of us, I mean, I was successful as state rep, Scotty was city councilman, Al Plant was state representative. So our guys really, you know, we went on and we got involved, and we started organizing among the people and bucking against the party. And Leo Marshall was the big party boss at that time, very powerful. And we infiltrated and we did our thing. And a lot of people, thousands and thousands of people and families got help as a result of all that old background of all that. I sit here now, still the executive director. I worked and ran the agency as director in its infant days with no salary for 4 years. The first grant we got, because we were just blowing the newspaper up. People were coming to us with all kinds of things, and we were very aggressive, and we had forced the issue. And we straightened it out. If it was wrong, we straightened it out. And as a result of all that, Mr. Felix Stickney, who used to be the executive director of the YMCA, who used to come over every day and sit in our office. A lot of people used to stop by, Hicks and all of them. But anyway, Felix started telling me for what we were doing, we'd help somebody with a Social Security problem. They denied and didn't want to give them their Social Security. And that blew up in the paper. And the old lady down Wilson Street, the paper took a picture of holding her check and the back money that they gave her that they should have been giving her in the first place and all that. And had me in the paper. But a stick came over and said, man, you ought to be getting paid for what you do. These folks helping you. Kingcenter has a worth. And I want to help you do some proposals and put them in and get some money. I never thought about it. My thing was my janitorial service. That's where I made my living off of it. And I wasn't trying to get paid for it. And we never had the thought. We would buy lunch and get pizzas and stuff around there during the days for the ladies and for those guys that were there and whatnot. And I mean, on Friday, we were eating there on Fridays. We were open Monday to Thursday. We would end up leaving there, so honestly,